Monday, bloody. No, that's not it. That's not it. Joe's in the house. Mama Joe. What's up? We got it all figured out now. We got sound. We have all of the things. Welcome to Cooperville Live. Wherever you're watching, thank you for making this a part of your Monday evening, afternoon, depending on where you're watching, I suppose. Just after 5 o'clock here in the Chippewa Valley. There he is. Hello. Hello and welcome. It's good to have you here. Facebook Live, youtube.com/Cooperville Live, and of course on Twitch. We thank you for being here and for following the show. It's all good. Dr. J is in the house today. We're talking all sorts of fun stuff. Post-weekend. What happened? Hope you had a great weekend. We did a graduation party. Tried to put up a pool. Did not work out as well as we'd hoped, but we get it all figured out. The show is brought to you by, of course, Cooperville Clothing. Bunch of new stuff. Mama Joe's got a shirt on the way. Check it all out. We got a little something for everybody. Really digging these AR Grim Blackout shirts, though. I have one, and I love it. So at said graduation party, my aunt was there, and she was like, so you got a clothing company, not really my style, but I know. It's not for everyone. Neither is Captain Coop's Beard Company. It really is only for the bearded, unless you know somebody who's got a beard and is interested in some goodness for their face hair. Get them a gift card. Father's Day coming up next weekend already. Believe that? Hard to believe. And big shout out to my friends at Midwest Meals, MidwestMeals.com. They deliver nationwide. 16 rotating healthy meals with all the information you need on each of them. They're delicious. They're easy. Cleanup is a snap. Good stuff. MidwestMeals.com. Promo code is Cooper at checkout, and you get 10% off your first order at MidwestMeals.com. Don't let the name fool you. Like I said, they deliver nationwide. So if you order by Friday, they do all their shipping on Monday. So you get your meals for the week, and you're good to go. You're set. You're square. Life is good. Life is good. Hope you all had a great weekend, whatever it is that you did. It was toasty up here in Wisconsin. 98. I think we hit 98 on Saturday here. A little cooler on Sunday. It was only near 90. I'm sure Joe was enjoying all of that heat and humidity, and it continues today. We're still 91, which is not unprecedented, but typically we kind of ease into summer, and then we get like 3 days, and then we kind of ease into fall. Now we're just like, summer's here. And here to stay, at least for the week, it looks like. So stay cool, stay hydrated, do all the right things, and you'll survive. You'll survive. A lot of heat everywhere. I'm seeing, except, of course, we talked about coming back from Florida. And so now it's like 1 and 2 on my weather app of what's the weather like here, what's the weather like there. And it was raining in 75 in Naples, and it was sunny in 98 here. So I guess it's not all bad. It's not all horrible, maybe. Joey ran out of clothes on Saturday. I'm gonna roll that around a little bit. All right, like it was laundry day, or you just sweated through all of them, because it was that oozy weather. Or like even the breeze. Like we had a graduation party on my niece. Congratulations, M-Hat, graduating and on to take on the world. But I mean, they had tents out. So there was no direct sun, but even like that breeze that was coming through was thick. It was thick. Down in Florida, man, that breeze comes off the ocean. You're like, oh, this is refreshing. Up here, it was just like hot air, hot, thick, steamy, sweaty air. It ran out of dry clothes. Yeah. That was kind of our jam. We were gonna hang out a little bit longer at the grad party, but it got to be like, oh my gosh, and there was no beer, so we decided we brought some, but we were like, we're gonna go, and we hung out in the backyard, did some work out here, so it was good. It's a run of sticky days, and even at work today, it was just like, whew. Like I came home at 4 and like took a cold shower. Kind of cool off a little bit. And then I realized like I'm coming down here to the ice box, AKA the lab, AKA the studio, and where it's even with the air conditioning vents closed, it's still chilly. But as soon as I open that door, head upstairs and go outside, it's sticky. But you got to take advantage of it while you got it, Pretty soon it'll be too steamy or too cold to do anything. So there's an interesting Apple News spotlight about the upcoming UFO report that's going to change everything we know about the universe. Of course, you guys know I'm big into the alien thing. Believer in the spacecraft, in the aliens that are either inside of them and or piloting them from afar. I'm excited for y'all to jump on board my crazy train over here and just, we come in peace, man. We come in peace. But I'm going to talk about that on the show tomorrow. I got Dr. J coming up. We're going to talk some Fauci stuff and some other things. I want to talk to him about research because we always preach that on the show about, like, do your research. Do your diligent research on stuff. Don't just let the news narrative tell you, like, what's what about really any topic, not just political or COVID or anything like that. Like, everything you should do your own research on. So I want to kind of pick his brain a little bit about his research project because he is a diligent researcher. So I just want to get some insight, get some news and tips and information, mostly for myself. I brought my pen, my Sharpie, and I got my notepad right here. So I'm all set. Joe's in. All right. He's in to win. Good stuff. But yeah, thank you all for jumping in on board the chat. And don't forget, you can always ask questions if you have them as the conversation rolls up. So appreciate you, as always, being a part of today's program. I see Dr. J is in the house. He is ready to talk all sorts of things, especially his favorite human being on planet Earth. No, it's not me. It's Tony Fauci. How you doing, Dr. J?
I'm doing well. How are you? It's been a couple of weeks, Coop. How was your vacation?
We talked about the importance of vacation. I told you it's been damn near a decade since I'd been on one. And I remembered how restorative, how much clarity you find during vacation, even though, we're active. We didn't just do a whole lot of sitting around. We tried to see as much as we could. But I think a lot of it was, and you do a lot of this, is just observing. A lot of observation of like how not want to say how the other half lives necessarily, but like this is how they do it here. This is how people behave. And down in Florida, it was a really amazing sight to see. People everywhere, mask free for the most part. There were some restaurants that we stopped at that the staff was still wearing some, and I think it's the vitamin D. But everybody's really freaking nice down there. Really, like Wisconsin gets this reputation of like, oh, they're so nice up there. But compared to Florida, we're kind of a bunch of assholes. Everybody was real nice.
Yeah, well, it's a different culture down there for a variety of reasons. I think people are more chill and are happier. So essentially, what you were observing was the overall happiness quotient that Floridians are experiencing. Because I've been down there too. And it's very different than when you travel to different parts of the country. And as you know, I've been out traveling around, and so I observed this as well too. So I think the happiness quotient is what you observed.
And in all parts of the day too. We were in the Naples area, so it's a little. People think Florida, and I think they get like this South Beach spring break in their mind, and but down in a place like Naples and stuff, you have a very wide range of people from all different walks of life from all over the world. But at all points of the day, like we got up early and walked the beach, and there's people out there walking the beach and reading, and everybody's like, good morning, hi, hello. During the afternoon, the same thing. In the evening, it's not raucous, everybody would, but just the pleasantries and camaraderie that we experienced in Florida was a real eye opener. I think great for fodder on this show, as it's some comparisons and contrasting of here and there. But I know you just went somewhere too. I thought I saw a posting that you recently took some travels.
Yeah, I was in Napa and Sonoma Valley this past weekend. I was there for about 4 days. Attended and spoke at an event, and got a chance to visit some fantastic vineyards. One of my favorite passions is wine tasting, and it was just great to get away with high level thinkers and clear your mind and reset. This thing we talk about vacation is not just merely the act of getting away, but it's an emotional reset. It's a mental reset. We exercise and eat right for our physical well-being, but very few people take the time to work on your emotional well-being. And I think vacation gives you perspective. Getting away gives you perspective how good your life is, gives you perspective, and to compare and contrast with others. And so that's where I think the real value of getting away, and then meeting with other people and learning new cultures and new ways. It's just cool. It's fun. It's one of the passions that my wife and I have. It's real high value for us is travel.
Let's see. Last time before this vacation, you went on the Bourbon Trail, and then this vacation on a vineyard. I'm starting to notice a trend that we are closer proximity than you think, Dr. J. You and I would probably travel the same paths, but it was for a guy like me. I meditate every day. We've talked about this, and you're a guy who obviously there's a lot of mental clarity that we work through in a very kind of crazy business world, and things that you're doing and things that I'm doing as well. But it's a different type of mental clarity, I think, when you get to a place, and though the standard day-to-day stuff outside of some of the core values that you kind of keep true to even when you're on vacation, but when you're able to not have X, Y, and Z things on the list for the day, you're really able to kind of tap into. I remember we were laying out by the pool one morning, had a cup of coffee, and we just landed there and like really had this moment of like re-energizing, like super clear about direction moving forward on a couple of my different businesses, a couple of my different personal things. Like, so I think that moment that you're kind of away from, and even if you're at home and you're having a peaceful moment or a nice weekend, even though you're maybe not thinking of them, those distractions are still abundantly out there, whether it's you're in close proximity to work or there's a family and there's all the other stuff. But when you're actually away and not within driving distance of anybody, real great moments to find clarity. And again, like you said, recharge. And it was great. And came back. Luckily, it was 85 here, so I was acclimated already to the weather. And then like 3 days later, it snowed. So I mean, it figured, it's good to be back in Wisconsin when it can do those two things in the course of 3 days.
Talk about observation. One thing I've seen in my life is I notice campers tend to be the most grounded and centered people. People spend a lot of time out in the woods and they camp, and I mean, that's their thing, and that's awesome. But they tend to be really centered people. Maybe it's that connection to Mother Earth, and again, eliminating the distractions, just getting out in nature. So I guess the point being here is get out in nature, clear your mind and get centered, get grounded. Emotional well-being leads to physical and spiritual and financial well-being.
Absolutely, 100%. We came back totally energized and really have gone all in a bunch of different aspects of things. So it was well worth it, and we can't wait to get back and explore some more. But because you always leave stuff on the table. When you go to a place, you're like, you walk by a restaurant, or you walk by like, oh, this beach looks beautiful, or this particular place looks really interesting, and you don't quite get there. So it's always on the bucket list for the next time we go down. So we're looking forward to that. But a lot has happened in the 2 weeks since we've spoken. Your friend, and we've spoken highly of him on this show several times, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has found himself in some interesting waters, and it's strangely enough with a couple of different topics that you and I have discussed that he was clearly on one side of, and then it turns out if you Freedom of Information Act, you pull back some of the curtains here, you're able to find out some more stuff. So your reaction to the current ongoings in the world of Tony Fauci.
So let me first start by saying that it's easy to stand in judgment of other people. And I don't think for a moment that it's been an easy road for him, and I'm empathetic to the challenges that he's been through. Now, with that being said, I observe behavior, as we talked about. And because I can't see him on a day-to-day basis, I can only judge him on his words and on his character. And, I was thinking about this. The guy flip-flops more than a grill chef at IHOP. I mean, he's been all over the place. And so how does that instill trust in the public? And the most latest bombshell about Anthony Fauci is this. It's that for 12, 14 months, he's been saying that the virus is of natural order. There's nothing to look at here. And now all of a sudden, all the major media outlets, including the New York Times, had a massive report, are coming to the conclusion, the data is really coming to the conclusion that this is not of natural order. It's man-made. It was made in the Wuhan lab. And there's a likelihood his NIH helped fund it. Because they were originally shut down. I can't recall if it was 15 or 16. It was actually Obama who shut them down. I think it was 15. They were doing this bioweapons lab testing in North Carolina at one of the military bases. And he shut it down. Took his football, took his NIH funding. Here, Wuhan lab, you continue to do the work, right? So whether it comes to the ultimate conclusion, which I believe it will, that this is not of natural order, undermines the premise of everything thereafter. So then we look at it and we say, okay, was it an accident? Perhaps. Was it intentional? Perhaps. We don't know. But you can't discount one or the other. I can't say it was absolutely intentional, but I also can't say it wasn't. And none of your listeners can as well, too. So then from that supposition, where do we go from there? Well, if it wasn't natural, it was man-made, and if it was intentionally released, what was the motive? I believe in my heart of hearts, we will come to find out. I really do. Because this is way too big of a bombshell not to find out. And in fact, if you recall, back last summer, one of the heads of research, a female Chinese doctor, left China, literally ran out of China, came to the U.S. She's been under protective custody for a long time. She made the media rounds for a short period of time. You've never heard from her since. She was the one who first claimed that the way that the virus was manipulated could not be of natural order. In other words, sequentially, it could never happen the way it did. It had to be modified. And it happened there. And it was intentional. She was making those claims. She was threatened. Her family was threatened. No one's heard from her since. So, I don't know, man. I'm not about conspiracies. What I'm saying is people can choose to believe me or not believe me based on the words and what I say. Am I consistent? Is it substantiated? Do I say one thing today and another thing tomorrow? Believe me here, believe me there. But believe me either way.
Right.
Ultimately, we have to use our intellect, set aside our subjective interrogatories, and really look at this as objectively as possible. Because if we don't, I hate to tell you, we're going to repeat this again. This is not the last we've ever heard of this.
Yeah. I think there is another point that we've discussed about authority figures and putting people in this this figurative place of knowledge and understanding, because there are things that I don't understand fully. And so when you have an authority figure, somebody who is perpetrated as this person of vast knowledge, that understands the ins and outs and the ups and downs and the all-arounds, you put this person on television, on every television. You put him in the White House, you put him next to the president, then you put him next to the next president, and this person becomes like the know-it-all of all things, and obviously in this case it's COVID. And so you never actually, well, not never, but most people don't sit down and like listen to an entire press conference, all the Q&A, the stuff. They get fed the stuff, the clips that come out that are, the question's read and he answers it, and the question's read and he answers it. And he just becomes the guy that people follow. And we've talked about this weird change that happens in people when we used to be a culture that questioned authority and wanted to know more and wanted to understand why these conclusions were coming to these conclusions. But now we've turned into, not, I use proverbial we, but like, oh, well, the guy on TV says, and even through the flip-flops that you talked about, the IHOP reference was great. Drove by an IHOP in Florida. I'm like, wow, these things are cool. I didn't go in, but I was, you don't see those up here. But it doesn't matter that he flip-flopped on a bunch of things, because people just went, oh, okay. And they just kind of went with all the changes up and down, back and forth. And you hope at some point, because of the revelations of this, this email, the Freedom of Information Act that, BuzzFeed asked for, and New York Post got some stuff, like you hope that people start to find that inquisitive question authority voice in the back of their head that says, wait, now I have to go back and look at all the decisions I made based on the information that I was being fed from the television on how I decided to live my life for the past year plus and how I decide to live it going forward. You hope that it inspires people to, again, become a little more cognitive of what's being force-fed to them through their television screens and through their news feeds on social media.
What makes that challenging, Coop, is this. If I start to question this because I'm using my prefrontal cortex, my logic brain, and the logic brain tells me this doesn't add up, that requires me to didactically and deductively begin to dig deeper. Well, if this doesn't add up, what about this? What about this? What about that? And that's really uncomfortable. Forget about picking a scab. It's open a 16-stitch wound.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, that's not a place they want to go. And it's also a reason why sometimes I think people who listen to me or other people who maybe speak out like I do either tune you off or attack you because it makes them so uncomfortable. They can't even process it. And so they just verbal vomit on themselves and then on you. So my wife, who is one of the most intuitive human beings I've ever met, she's amazing. She keeps telling me the truth is coming and it will change everything. And I believe her. Yeah. She's never been right when she's really in tune with her intuition. So let me make this point, because I was watching one of my mentors, my scientific mentors, Dr. James Chestnut, who I actually studied under for a few years. And he was talking about the vaccine, and which, by the way, I released today. I mentioned to you about a month or so ago. I released today my podcast, Power, Passion, Prosperity, 11 reasons why I chose not to get the COVID shot. And your listeners might want to check it out. It's been blowing up all day. Been getting messages and such. And you can find it on your favorite podcast apps, Power, Passion, Prosperity. But he was saying, look, the importance of science is not to start with a biased premise. It's to start with an unbiased premise. Because if you begin with a biased premise, every conclusion after that is a bias in nature. Incorrect. It's one of the things that maybe makes me the most frustrated when I hear people who don't know differently say, listen to the science. Really? Because if the science is started and it's flawed from the beginning, you're following data that's come to the conclusion based on a wrong premise. That's why I've always said you can never get to the right answer asking the wrong question. So we're in such an interesting time. It actually excites me in a sense because this is about an awakening. I think culturally we're in a new I talked about Renaissance period when there was this, out of the darkness came this new awakening. I really feel we're at this precipice of a new awakening, particularly when it comes to big tech and big pharma and what's been going on. And it's never been more evident and more blatant. And I'm very excited of what's going to happen as a result of it. I'm an optimist by nature. I
love it. I mean, I think you're right. I think there's so much that we're on the cusp of in all of this. And I think COVID is a part of a much larger piece. And I think you mentioned a couple of different things in there with big tech and big pharma and all the avenues that's leaked into in our daily lives, and how it's become just a part of like this weird, the fabric of who we are or were has now intertwined with this complex new function that our bodies weren't necessarily designed to have a part of them, and that is this social media, this technology, which trust me, I'm a fan of. I think it presents a lot of opportunity for people, but it also can present pathways of misinformation for people that will bet their life and bet their kids' life and bet the farm and bet everything on this information that they find on the internet, or because they follow a particular narrative and stuff. But I do think it will take a major exposure, a major undercovering of things to have people have that moment where you talked about peeling off that 16-stitch scab, opening that wound up. Some people will be forced to have to do that because they will go, oh my gosh, this is like, you can't ignore this. You can't just go, that's just Dr. J and Coop talking shit. They'll let them go on their little live show. That by the way, that was my best Fauci. Just go on and do your thing. And apparently he's from the South Bronx. But I think there has to be something that reaches, and that's why it surprises me a lot with this. The Fauci thing reaching the level where it's in the New York Post, where it's being talked about on NBC Nightly News or MSNBC, because typically, it's like the NFL motto of protect the shield. You get behind the shield, you protect everything that shield represents. It's kind of the same thing in the mainstream media where, and including big tech in there as well, get behind the shield and we'll protect everything that's behind the shield. I mean, even, the Biden administration came out and said, there's nothing Anthony Fauci can do that would get him fired. That should scare people. It should scare, like there's nothing, like absolutely nothing, like him and a horse and like a weird video, like that services, he's still got a job. Like, I don't understand how you make that kind of a claim openly and inadvertently in public and say there's nothing this man can do that would get him fired, when there's all of a sudden these light bulbs going off in people's minds saying, wait a minute, while we're all doing this, he's under the cover of, not so protected emails saying these things. You hope people have a realization at some point that this is not okay what's happening currently, and what's to come is going to be even more eye-opening.
So, Coop, this is a guy who's been in government for nearly 50 years. In of itself, is not a bad thing, to an extent. He has not treated a patient in nearly 50 years, which is one of the things that just has absolutely, I talked about my frustration before. Amory University, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, the most prestigious medical schools have come up with very effective treatments within 5 days of exposure. And like the rate of healing is like nearly 100%. Government has literally suppressed that information from these schools. If your listeners are hearing that for the first time, you should fall off your chair.
Yeah.
Because the implication is the government doesn't want people to get well, is invested in more sickness, more disease, and more death. Then your question is, why is that? And it brings us to where we are right now.
Yeah.
This is the vaccine.
Yeah, which is
right? In the recent weeks, right, we've seen a significant rise in all sorts of vaccination incentives.
Oh yeah,
from free donuts, cake, French fries, which are great for your immune system, by the way.
Yep.
Hot dogs, pizza, arcade tokens, 10-cent beers, free Uber rides, baseball tickets, $1 and $5 million giveaways. Why the hell do we have to manipulate and incentivize so much to convince people to get? We've never done that before. Okay? Here's the real key. I want everybody to pay close attention. The United States Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, right, or VAERS, has logged more deaths, okay, listen now, more deaths following the COVID vaccines than all available vaccines combined over the last 15 and a half years. And the vaccine's been out since February. Mm-hmm. That was month 2. This is month 6, so roughly 4 months. So we know that former COVID-19 patients are even pushed, right? Like, I'm naturally immune. How do I know? I got tested. I have natural immunity. I have super immunity, mm-hmm. right? So they're getting pushed to get the shot, even though they already have the superior immunity. And studies show that they have a far higher risk for severe side effects from the vaccine. And recently, North Carolina passed legislation that allows children up to 12 or youngest 12 to get the vaccine without parental consent and zero research. Zero. So essentially, you're giving your kids up for a mass experiment. In fact, we're all in a mass experiment right now. So let me finish with this. So the vaccine, some say, will contribute to a depopulation by triggering antibody-dependent immune enhancement, which makes you more susceptible to severe COVID exposure to COVID-19 if you're exposed to the virus. Mm. Because antibodies against the spike proteins may also attack synthesin, which is a modulus protein essential for the formation of the placenta, which we're seeing a mass increase of infertility. And again, I have no research to support this. This is anecdotal. Is people who haven't gotten the shot, who are pregnant women, around people who have, and spontaneously abort. Okay? So the overall shots may destroy your natural immune system and set you up for chronic, long-term debilitating illnesses and premature death. And there's more than dozens and dozens and dozens of scientists who are now coming around to this and have been writing about this. And it's because of this spike protein.
That's frightening stuff. I mean, when you talk about, we've talked about this being, the largest experiment that's ever been done in human history. And you look at it, obviously, from the vaccine standpoint and the facts that you just dropped about the dangers behind it. But there's also, it seems like this experiment also includes like this socioeconomic kind of like people who will follow the leader off the cliff. You know what I mean? Like, and we had this conversation about, somebody in my family who was, being pressured and bullied almost to an extent to get the vaccine in order to attend a wedding. Now, you're seeing this in these stories that come out about people being separated, people being or being noted with, there was I can't remember, I think it was in it was Tennessee somewhere, where they had, we're just going to put this gold star on you if you don't have the vaccine. There was a story out of Florida about a concert promoter who was charging, I think, $13 for a ticket for a show. Unless you weren't vaccinated, then it was like just under $1,000 for a ticket to the show. So you're seeing these strange, stories about not just the vaccine itself, but about how we are treating those who choose not to get the vaccine. You want to talk about an experiment. This is an experiment on so many different levels. I mean, people should be taking note of how fearful that kind of manipulation is, and really be aware, because I think some people do it and not even acknowledge the fact that I've been vaccinated and I don't want you to do this because you haven't been. Like, acknowledge like really what you are saying and what history has shown doing these sorts of things can lead to, and educate. I mean, you're the most diligent researcher that I know, Dr. J. So I come to you with all the good questions and stuff. But I think it's so important for people, whether you're whatever side of the fence you're on right now, even more so if you're on the vaccine mask side of the fence, to really start doing diligent research, to really start listening to multiple different channels of information and digging a little bit below the surface. You talked about those stories from Johns Hopkins and all these other places at Stanford University that you can't find unless you do some digging, which doesn't seem like you should be able to hit the Google machine and that kind of stuff should come up, but it isn't. and the stories about deaths associated with the vaccine, you Google that, those aren't coming up, and it should be the first thing that pops up. I gave you the thing, and the thing, that should be what pops up, and it's not. So now we're talking about that big tech involvement. You're talking about pharma involvement. It's an experiment beyond all. It's not just one facet. It's all the facets of all the life, and it's not just the United States. It's obviously global. So it's a lot to process, but people have to do their research.
Well, look, none of us want to believe that, none of us want to believe that there's some intentionality behind this or some big mass conspiracy or plan. And I don't know if there is or isn't. I'm not saying there is. You just have to look at it, because typically an unprecedented vaccine takes 12 years to develop. That means one that's never been formulated previously. All of the unprecedented vaccines in development, only 2% are projected to ever make it through phase 2 and phase 3 of clinical testing. The COVID vaccine was developed, remember Operation Warp Speed? In less than 1 year, which makes it virtually impossible to assess safety and efficacy, because the vaccine has never been tested for safety. So when you hear these commercials, it's been tested, it's proven safe. Show me the data. Show me the data.
Right. You
could show me the data. I'll change my tune, but I know it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That has got to make you uncomfortable.
And you notice,
right?
We were watching, and this every once in a while we'll actually turn on regular TV, and sometimes just like an ad when you're streaming a show. But if you watch a commercial for any other medicine, any other thing that's out there, it follows that this is approved. It's good. This will help lower your cholesterol, grow your hair back, make you taller. Like 30 things that sound pretty horrible to have encounter, like could cause paralysis. Well, I'd rather be bald than have to worry about that. Like, and you don't hear anything associated with that. Oh, and by the way, somebody in a very calm tone voice is going to tell you all the things that this could possibly deter you from doing.
Yeah, and it's called informed consent, right? It's informed consent. So here's what we know about the vaccine. We know it doesn't contribute to herd immunity. Number one. We know it doesn't prevent infection. We know it also doesn't prevent you from transmitting the infection. Those are those are absolutely conclusive. Not again, the data from who? Oh, the vaccine companies. So to me, it's risk reward. Does the risk of being part of a mass experiment, and will there be people who get the shot and maybe never have any? Sure. God, I hope so. I hope that's everybody. Everybody. Right? But conversely, the other thing's always also going to happen. And it may not be today, tomorrow, could be 6 months from now, 12 months from now. We don't know. But that's what the experts are concerned about. Because of the spike protein, the body recognizing it as a synthetic, genetically modified, having a hyperimmune reaction as a result of it. How it responds? They're concerned about cardiovascular disease, obviously the clotting issues, and significant autoimmune and neurological diseases. This is the concern moving forward. We'll have to watch the data. The data will tell us if it's the case or not. And I pray it's not.
Yeah.
Anybody out there knows who I don't want to see this. I pray.
No. But I think the education, individual education is incredibly important. Just know your stuff. And I think that's what, a great data point is Dr. J. And of course, the new podcast, which just dropped today. Make sure everybody goes and finds that Power, Passion, Prosperity podcast, available everywhere fine podcasts are heard. And you can go and listen to that and get some good insight, because you're the diligent researcher in my life, Jay. So I got to, I have questions, and I call you, and I'm like, raising my hand in the back. But for those who don't, for those who are looking for outlets of information, can you give people some good places where, like, if you're looking to dig under the surface a little bit, like, how do you do it? How do you kind of get to the information that's maybe not as readily available as you would hope it would be?
The easiest, it's not so easy. is I search journals, and then like I go to the journals and I'll put COVID in,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll see what studies have come up,
Right.
right? Epidemiology, immunology, virology journals, and I'll, latest COVID research,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll just kind of peruse it and I'll see what's available. Sometimes I get someone will send me something, hey, look into this, and I'll dig in further. Some of it's good, some of it's not good, right? Some of it, like I couldn't come on here and talk about it because I can't substantiate it,
Right.
and I don't want to, contribute to conjecture or rumor. Plus, it's my own reputation.
Right.
There's already one Italian flip-flopper. We don't need two.
Well put, my friend. Well put. Dr. J, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for the insight and information. It's always noteworthy. And again, the more that we know, I think the better off that we all are. And that's, a statement of all facets of life. But this is super important stuff. And we'll have you back on soon, and we'll chat more. We'll learn more from Dr. J. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Dr. J. LaGuardia, Power, Passion, Prosperity Podcast. New episode is out today. Go and listen to it everywhere quality podcasts are heard, just like you can hear this one. Welcome to Cooperville. Search it on all quality podcast platforms while we're still up before they pull us off. Wherever you are tuning in, wherever you're watching, thank you so much for being a part of today's show. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening. We're back tomorrow. Who do we have on tomorrow? Ian Severson is coming back on the show. Ian, of course, one of my favorite bands when I was just getting into the radio industry, Ginger Jake. He's got a new project, got a bunch of new stuff, Kill Devil Hill, and what else is he in? He's got a Beat Devil Music. Dude, just doing stuff. Ian Severson is on the show tomorrow starting at 5:10 p.m. Be sure you join us. Hit the links. Follow us everywhere. Follow us into oblivion, because that's where we're headed. Not oblivion necessarily. Thank you all for tuning in, Mama Joe. My mom, $50,000 vaccine lottery in California. Should put that on a sign. Welcome to California. Drug commercials are the worst, Mama Joe. Take this and suffer this. Wait, no, I don't want to suffer that. Doesn't sound good at all. Have a great night. We're out of here. Let's go.